Welcome back. Now, Gardaí are continuing their investigation into what they believe was an arson attack on a building accommodating people applying for international protection in Drogheda, County Louth, on Friday night.
Tabitha Monaghan, political correspondent with the Irish Independent, has stayed with us. She is joined alongside Labour Councillor and Mayor of Drogheda, Michelle Hall. Good morning to you both, Michelle.
Morning.
Thank you so much for joining us. Tabitha, can you give us any updates on the arson attack that we saw on Friday?
Yeah, so as some people will remember, it happened at about 8:30 on Friday. Gardaí now believe that 2 people were potentially involved in this. One person who who we see on the CCTV camera pouring an accelerant onto the stairs and then lighting the accelerant. Then another person that was standing outside as a lookout. So essentially what we believe now, especially because we have the CCTV, earlier reports, I think, in and around Friday and Saturday, was that it was understood that a firework had caused the fire. But now Gardaí are looking at it as an arson attack, that we see an individual pouring what Gardaí believe could be petrol onto stairs, then lighting it and then taking off. But what's really worrying about this, not only the 5 people, 4 children that had to be rescued from the upstairs part of this building, but the children that were involved in that, was this staircase was the only access and exit from this building, which is incredibly stressful for anybody who would have been trapped in that. We have 28 people who've now been made homeless as a result of this incident. So what Gardaí are now doing is that they are now looking at other CCTV around the area, trying to identify the people who could have been involved in this, because as anybody who would have seen the CCTV, the individual has their identity covered, they're wearing gloves so that they can't be identified. So they're trying to figure out now what were the next movements of these people.
A newborn baby was upstairs.
20 days old.
20 days old. The one access.
Yeah.
Attempted murder charges.
Potentially, yeah.
That's what's being looked at by the Gardaí now.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, because it was potentially they're trying to look whether or not it was planned. Because I think the accelerant aspect of that. That's why they're looking at that. Endangerment could be another charge, and then arson as well is something else they're going to look for. But they are still searching for the people who took place.
Michelle, what's the reaction been like from the locals?
Oh, people are so upset, as I am very upset. They're shocked and absolutely saddened to think that somebody would come in, intrude on these people's safety and the family, and as you say, light an accelerant. So they were looking to do the maximum amount of damage to these people. So I could be here today. Thankfully, I'm here to, in not tragic circumstances. It could be mass murder. It literally could have been 28 people dead, and that seems to be their intent. So it's hugely traumatising for the families. And the people of Drogheda have come out in force to say that this is not a reflection of who we are. This is 2 people, as we found out today, 2 people who had intent to really harm these people, but that is not what the people of Drogheda are about. We do not have riots, we don't have marches, we have never been engaged in this far-right rhetoric or extreme nationalism. The far-right have tried to come into Drogheda, they've tried to stoke fear and division. It's never taken hold, because people in Drogheda are just not interested in that. We're a very tolerant and compassionate town, so we are. We're the largest town in Ireland, and because we've had a large hospital, which is the biggest employer in our town, so it was the Medical Missionaries of Mary, and so we've had people of colour living in our town for over half a century. So we don't know if they're living in an IPAS centre, if they're working in the hospital. They're here to make a better life for themselves and
I saw
to contribute to society.
Today, one of the mums of the 2 children that was in
she was a healthcare worker.
She was a healthcare worker. She was at work, and her 8 and 12-year-old girls, she had so many missed calls she could see on her phone, and then had a message saying, "The house is on fire, please answer."
Yeah, wouldn't you just be so sick to your stomach when you get something like that? And I really want to commend the Gardaí and the fire services on the busiest night of our whole year. The Halloween services are so stretched, and I don't know whether the timing of this particular attack was used so that maybe Gardaí couldn't get there quick enough, or fire services couldn't get quick enough, but they did, and they rescued them. And I'd like to thank the Gardaí and the fire services of Louth County Council for their quick action in saving people.
We're living in a world, Tabitha, of the services are stretched. Drogheda is a stretched town. It's looking for city status at this stage. There's so many people that live in Drogheda. And there's a fraught debate. 100,000 Ukrainians have come into Ireland in the last few years. What is the feel? How is Drogheda doing in relation to services? Are you hearing from people those kind of dog whistles, Ireland is full? Are you hearing that sort of a thing?
You do hear it. Obviously, people are angry and frustrated about the lack of services, but I think we're very, we're intelligent people in Drogheda. We're not going to conflate what has happened and a lack of investment in infrastructure with migrants coming into the country seeking asylum. Most people, I think, realise that most of them are here for genuine reasons and they're fleeing places of conflict. And, the world has changed so much in the last 5 years, and that these people are coming, like 1 in 8 people in the world are living in an area of conflict. But, if in Drogheda, there are places where there's severe deprivation, for example. But the reasons for deprivation is more to do with male unemployment, lack of third level education, women, lone parents being at risk of extreme poverty. Those are the exact reasons. It's not conflated with people who are coming here seeking asylum. And in fact, the figures do show that this year in Ireland, that we have much less people seeking asylum than we did this time last year. So we have 9,500 people seeking asylum according to International Protection Office figures, whereas 15,500 people.
It was 18,554 last year. It has dropped to 9,000 this year. Yeah.
So it has dropped. You know, so the misinformation going out there that these numbers are increasing when it isn't actually.
Listen,
true.
when you see something like this happening, though, you can imagine the people living in those centres are feeling very scared going forward. I know that the Minister of State Justice, Home Affairs and Migration, Colin Brophy, has said a security review of all IPAS centres is now being speeded up to try and make sure and assure people that they're safe.
Yeah, so I think there's over 300 centres across the country. So they want to, as you said, Colin Brophy said, they don't have a timeline for this. We don't actually have a huge amount of detail because it was only announced over the weekend. There is going to be a review into security. But Nick Henderson of the Irish Refugee Council, he was out this morning and he had said, like, maybe this should have happened already, the security review into IPAS centres, especially because there's been a trend towards arson in relation to IPAS accommodation that we've seen over the last at least year, if not longer, and not necessarily when there's people actually living in the centre. It's accommodation that is potentially earmarked for accommodation. So I think, we do need to see a review. We need to see what there is that trend towards that and what kind of security is around these accommodation centres.
Because this is an escalation. There was people in this centre that money had been put into to refurbish and bring it back. So they've done that, but there was people living there before it was always previous suspected places. Let's talk about the front of the paper today. The timing mightn't be the best, but it's saying asylum seekers working here will face a bill of up to €238 a week for a place to stay. Tabitha, this is in the Independent. Now, can you break this down for us, because it is about people who are already working?
Yeah, so this was something that's actually in the programme for government. So they had flagged that this is something that they were going to be looking at, and that those who are seeking international protection would contribute to their accommodation costs. So it isn't necessarily that they're going to be charged rent, and that there will be a contribution made. But as you said, it's for people who are working. That's the proposals that are being put forward at the moment. Now, that €238 is potentially the maximum amount of money that an individual would have to pay. So there will be a range. It could be between €15 and €238. Now, there are some concerns how this is going to be enforced, whether or not we have those mechanisms in place to be able to do that. Some of the reports are saying that there could, if people don't pay it, there could be debt collectors. So there's a number of things I think still need to be worked out, but this is something that the government are going to be looking at in terms of Cabinet Committee.
But now, we know there is a housing shortage for everyone out there in Ireland, but there are 5,000 people who have been given the legal right to remain in Ireland. So they're not able to, they're not able to get the protection application or the application, whatever, for it. So it's a tricky one now for the government, for these 5,000 people, to try and get them to go and find housing when there's nowhere really for them to go.
Well, this is it. And there's another part to this as well, separately, is actually how Ukrainians seeking temporary protection are going to be treated now. There's proposals that what will happen is that they'll come over, and instead of having 90 days to find accommodation, their own accommodation, this could be reduced to 30 days. Now, as you said, it's really difficult for anybody in the country to find accommodation. So when you're coming over, we have seen in recent months in particular, there's been an increase in the number of Ukrainians who have come over seeking international protection here. So reducing that from 90 days to 30 days is another way that the government are examining how to relieve the pressure on the international protection accommodation service.
If you want to get in contact, it's 0896 111 111. Another story today, far-right protest planned for appeal case of man convicted for filming asylum seekers. This is outside the Courts of Criminal Justice on Friday is when it's going to be planned. The guards have full notice of that. Just very finally, Michelle, we throw words around and we talk about people and numbers and you know, IPAS and all this. They're humans at the centre of this.
Oh,
the
absolutely.
dehumanisation of people in relation to refugee status is like, there's a 20-day-old baby.
Yeah, so like there's a small minority that are pushing that really strong narrative, and people are being radicalised on social media, and there isn't enough regulation of those posts on YouTube, on Facebook, on Twitter, etc. So that narrative's taken hold, and unfortunately I find people who don't agree with it, they just don't feel that they can voice their opinion. It's very hard to get into an argument. It's very tiring to get into an argument, not an argument, but even explaining the actual facts as well. So I think we know in Drogheda the overwhelming feeling, though, is that these are people who deserve a safe place, they deserve dignity, and I think it's really important that the government ensure that everybody in IPAS Centre feels safe, because even people of colour in Drogheda and all across, so we don't know where they're living, like are they doctors in the hospital, but all those people, they don't feel safe because they're being targeted. So anybody of colour is being targeted.
I know a number of those young kids as well, of course, they've had to move to temporary accommodation, have to go to school today with no uniform,
and
no
I think,
school
like,
bags
I'm
as
a
well.
primary school teacher as well, and, you know, frontline services include our teachers, and they're there to support the families too.
Michelle Hall, Mayor of Drogheda and Labour Councillor, thank you for joining us, and Tabitha Monaghan from the Irish Independent. Tabitha, as always, thank you for that.
Thank you both so much.